In the heart of a bustling city where the sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a warm golden glow across the rooftops, lived a man named Kwame. He was a dedicated engineer, known for his brilliant mind and relentless work ethic. Each morning, he would wake to the sound of the city awakening, the vibrant life outside his window matching the rhythm of his heart. The air was rich with the scent of street vendors selling spicy fried plantains and the distant laughter of children playing. But within the cozy walls of his home, a shadow lingered. His wife, Amara, whose laughter once filled their apartment with joy, now seemed a ghost of her former self. Kwame had been married to Amara for just over a year, but it felt like a lifetime since they had shared carefree moments together. They had met in college, where their love blossomed amidst late-night study sessions and shared dreams. But ever since Kwame took a demanding job in the oil industry, he was often away, working 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off at a remote offshore facility. Each departure felt like a chasm opening between them, and Kwame could sense the growing distance every time he called Amara. Her voice, once filled with warmth, now sounded distant and preoccupied, laden with unspoken words. One evening, after a grueling week of work, Kwame returned home, eager to surprise Amara with a romantic dinner. He envisioned a table adorned with candles, the sweet aroma of her favorite dishes wafting through the air, rekindling the spark they had shared. But as he stepped through the door, he was met not with laughter, but with an unsettling silence. The apartment felt different, the air thick with tension. "Amara," he called, his voice echoing through the quiet space. She appeared from the kitchen, her smile strained, her eyes avoiding his gaze. "I didn't expect you so soon," she said, her voice lacking its usual cheerfulness. Kwame's heart sank as he noticed the uneaten dinner he had prepared laid cold on the table. "I thought we could celebrate my return," he replied, forcing a smile, though the unease began to gnaw at him. The more he looked at her, the more he felt something was off. There were small details that caught his eye. Her hair was styled differently, a bit more glamorous than usual, and there was a certain nervous energy about her that he couldn't shake off. As the evening wore on, Kwame tried to engage Amara in light conversation, but she was distracted, her mind seemingly elsewhere. His heart raced as he caught her glancing at her phone, a flash of anxiety crossing her face each time it chimed. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his voice a mix of concern and confusion. "Yes, everything's fine," she replied quickly, but the way she averted her gaze told him otherwise. The weight of unspoken words hung between them, thick and suffocating. Days turned into weeks, and Kwame began to notice more troubling signs. When he would call during his work trips, Amara often sounded distracted, her responses clipped and hurried. There were odd excuses: she was busy with a project, or she had a last-minute commitment. Each conversation left him feeling more unsettled, his heart racing with doubt. The laughter that had once filled their home was replaced by a cold silence, and Kwame felt the distance between them growing like a dark cloud. On a particularly restless night, when sleep eluded him, Kwame decided to do something he never thought he would. He installed hidden cameras around their apartment in an act of desperation driven by his gnawing suspicion. He told himself it was for peace of mind, a way to see what was truly happening in his absence. Guilt washed over him as he set them up, but the thought of losing Amara, of her slipping away, was too painful to bear. The first few days of footage brought little comfort. Amara went about her routine as usual. There were moments of normalcy. She read on the couch, cooked dinner, and occasionally chatted with neighbors. But as the days wore on, he began to notice a pattern. The cheerful chatter of a neighbor named Kofi became a frequent sound on the recordings. Kofi, with his charming smile and easy laughter, was always there, laughing with Amara over coffee or sharing casual meals when Kwame was away. Each sighting twisted the knife deeper into Kwame's heart, and he found himself watching the screen with a mix of dread and anticipation. The following week, the atmosphere in the house changed dramatically. Amara dressed up one afternoon, her usual casual attire replaced by a form-fitting dress that left Kwame's heart racing for all the wrong reasons. She hurried out, not bothering to mention where she was going. His heart pounded as he replayed the footage from the camera, waiting for her return. Hours passed until he finally saw her come back, laughter echoing through the hallway as Kofi walked her to the door. Kwame's heart shattered as he watched them lean in closer, whispering secrets that belonged only to them. Amara rested her head on Kofi's shoulder, and the warmth of their shared moment ignited a storm of betrayal in Kwame's chest. The next morning, he replayed the footage again, hoping for a sliver of hope, a reason to believe he was mistaken. But as he watched, despair took hold of him. Amara and Kofi had a bond that felt so intimate, so effortless. It crushed him. How could she do this to him? The thought spiraled through his mind, and he wrestled with the urge to confront her. But he needed more proof. He needed to understand the depth of her betrayal before taking that leap. Each day at work became a blur as Kwame grappled with his emotions, unable to focus on anything but the images playing in his mind. Amara's laughter with Kofi echoed endlessly, a haunting reminder of the happiness that once filled their home. His colleagues noticed his distraction, his unease, but he brushed off their concerns, unwilling to share the turmoil brewing within him. Kwame decided to continue monitoring the cameras, convinced that he needed more evidence. The tension in his chest grew heavier with each passing day. One afternoon, he watched in disbelief as Amara received a package. The moment she opened it, she quickly hid its contents in a drawer. His heart raced with curiosity. What was she hiding? The questions plagued him, but he resolved to wait until he could confront her face to face. When Kwame returned home after another long stretch at work, the anticipation and dread coiled tightly within him. Amara greeted him with her usual warm smile, but he felt a palpable tension between them, a silent acknowledgement of the chasm that had formed. The evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and small talk, each moment filled with unspoken accusations. The next day, he suggested they invite Kofi over for dinner, testing the waters to gauge their relationship. Amara hesitated but eventually agreed, and Kwame felt a mix of hope and fear. During dinner, he watched them closely, his heart pounding with jealousy as they laughed and shared stories. Every light-hearted moment felt like a dagger, twisting deeper with each passing second. As Kofi left, Kwame seized the opportunity to confront Amara indirectly. "You and Kofi seem really close," he said, trying to keep his tone casual. Amara's eyes widened momentarily, and she quickly composed herself. "He's just been helpful while you're away," she replied, her voice steady. But Kwame could hear the strain in her words. The jealousy that bubbled within him ignited into anger. "I just hope there's nothing more to it," he said, unable to mask the accusation that slipped from his lips. Amara's reaction was swift. "Chidi, what are you implying?" she retorted, a flash of indignation crossing her face. "He's just a friend." Her eyes were filled with shock and hurt, and for a fleeting moment, Kwame felt a pang of guilt. But he knew the truth, felt it burning deep within him. Days passed with an unbearable tension hanging over their relationship. Kwame continued to monitor the cameras, his heart racing at every movement, every sound. He saw Amara leave the house often, her explanations becoming less convincing, her demeanor more guarded. It was as if she was hiding something deeper than he had imagined, and it left him feeling more isolated than ever. One restless night, Kwame found himself wandering into the living room, where he found Amara sitting quietly, her face a mask of sorrow. He sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "If there's something going on, please tell me," he urged softly. "I just want the truth." The weight of his words hung heavily between them, a silent plea for honesty. Amara looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "I love you, Chidi. I don't know what else to say," she whispered. Those words hit him like a freight train, a mix of love and betrayal swirling within him. He wanted to believe her, wanted to hold on to the fragile remnants of their love, but the doubt consumed him. As he prepared to leave for another 2 weeks at the oil rig, he resolved to stay calm and observant. The impending separation filled him with dread, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the truth would soon come to light. Each day spent apart felt like a step further into the unknown, and he feared what he might discover. Back at the apartment, Amara's routine seemed to change drastically. Kwame noticed her spending more time at home, her movements cautious, almost as if she were trying to avoid detection. One evening, he watched as Kofi returned, staying. Longer than usual, their voices low and conspiratorial. Kwame's heart raced with anger and fear. What could they be planning? What secrets lay beneath the surface? In a moment of desperation, Kwame decided to confront Kofi directly. He arranged to meet him under the pretense of wanting to discuss work. As they met at a cafe, Kwame felt the tension rise. Kofi was affable, his charm radiating as he laughed at Kwame's jokes, but inside, Kwame seethed. "I appreciate your support for Amara while I'm away," he began, carefully choosing his words. "But I need to know that you respect our marriage." Kofi's demeanor shifted, the joviality replaced by an undercurrent of tension. "Of course, man. She's just a friend to me," he replied, but the glimmer of doubt in his eyes made Kwame's blood boil. As the days turned into a blur of tension and unresolved emotions, Kwame's resolve hardened. He would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Back at the apartment, he decided to take matters into his own hands. He began digging deeper, reaching out to mutual friends, trying to gather information. Each revelation felt like a puzzle piece falling into place, revealing a truth he was not ready to face. Then came the day when everything changed. Kwame received a call from a mutual friend who revealed a shocking secret. Amara had been seeing Kofi romantically for months. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut, and the world around him spun in disbelief. He could no longer deny the truth staring him in the face. As he drove home, a storm raged inside him. Anger, hurt, and betrayal warred within, each emotion fighting for dominance. The moment he stepped into the apartment, he was filled with an overwhelming determination to confront Amara once and for all. "Amara!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the silence. She appeared from the kitchen, her eyes wide with surprise. "What's wrong?" Kwame's heart raced as he faced her. "I know about you and Kofi," he said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing within. Amara's expression shifted from shock to fear, and in that moment, Kwame could see the walls she had built around herself begin to crumble. "Chidi, it's not what you think," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Then tell me what it is," he demanded, each word laced with an urgency that felt electric. The silence stretched between them, a chasm filled with the weight of their unspoken truths. Finally, Amara spoke, her voice breaking. "I was lonely," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. You were gone all the time, and Kofi was there for me. I didn't mean for it to happen." Each word cut deeper than any blade, and Kwame felt the anger rise within him. "So you chose him over me? How could you do this?" he shouted, the pain of betrayal clawing at his heart. "I didn't choose him," she cried, desperation evident in her voice. "I thought I could handle it. I thought you wouldn't have to find out." With each exchange, the truth settled like a heavy fog, wrapping around them both. Kwame felt the weight of the world pressing down on him, the realization that their love had been tainted. He had fought so hard to protect their relationship, but the betrayal had severed the fragile threads that held them together. The tension in the room became suffocating, and Kwame turned to leave, desperate to escape the pain. But Amara reached for him, her voice a whisper. "Chidi, please don't go. I love you. I want to make this right." His heart raced at her words, torn between the desire to forgive and the reality of their shattered trust. I don't know if I can," he said, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. Days turned into weeks, and the aftermath of the confrontation left both Kwame and Amara grappling with their choices. The house, once filled with laughter, echoed with silence, each room a reminder of what they had lost. Amara tried to reach out, her attempts at reconciliation met with Kwame's guarded responses. They were two strangers trapped in a home that had once felt like a sanctuary. Eventually, Kwame made the difficult decision to take a break from the marriage. He needed time to think, to process the betrayal that had turned his world upside down. He moved into a small apartment across town, the walls bare and cold compared to the warmth of their shared home. Each night was a battle against loneliness, and he missed the intimacy they had once shared. As the days turned into months, Kwame began to focus on himself, rediscovering the passions he had set aside for the sake of their relationship. He poured himself into his work, diving deep into projects that reignited his love for engineering. The city that once felt heavy with memories began to shift, revealing glimpses of hope and new beginnings. Amara, on the other hand, faced the consequences of her choices. Kofi had moved on, leaving her to grapple with the loneliness that had initially driven her to seek comfort elsewhere. She sought therapy, determined to understand the reasons behind her actions and to rebuild her sense of self. It was a long and arduous journey, one filled with painful realizations, but she was committed to finding her way back. As they navigated their separate paths, both Kwame and Amara began to reflect on their love story, the passion, the dreams, and the heartache. They learned to embrace the lessons hidden within their pain, and slowly, the anger that had once consumed them began to dissipate. Time passed, and the city continued to pulse with life around them. On one serendipitous day, Kwame found himself at a local cafe, sipping coffee and enjoying the ambience. To his surprise, he spotted Amara across the room, deep in conversation with a friend. Her laughter rang clear, a sound that once brought him immense joy. He felt a pang of nostalgia, a reminder of the love that had once filled their lives. As their eyes met, a myriad of emotions passed between them: regret, longing, and a sense of acceptance. It was a fleeting moment, but it felt significant, as if time had paused to allow them both to acknowledge the journey they had taken. That day marked a turning point for both Kwame and Amara. They began to reach out to one another, tentatively at first, but with each interaction, they felt a flicker of hope. They shared their experiences, the lessons learned from their time apart, and slowly, the walls that had once divided them began to crumble. As they rebuilt their friendship, they discovered a new depth to their relationship, one rooted in understanding and forgiveness. While the scars of betrayal would never completely fade, They chose to move forward, hand in hand, ready to face the challenges of life together once again. And in that moment, as they sat together in the cafe, Kwame realized that love was not just about perfection. It was about growth, healing, and the resilience to rebuild even after the deepest wounds. The journey was far from over, but they faced the future with renewed hope, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead.